Hi everyone, as part of our series through summer of using up your stash, I've got a little pile of all sorts of oddballs, and I have got so many because every project for every sample we do, and a lot of you would have the same thing, has all these little bits and pieces left. So I've just pulled out, I think, 8 or 9 different ones that kind of all go together, and I'm holding 2 yarns together, and I'm making a hat that we call the wedge hat. So you can see this is the first wedge here, so you can see that's kind of a wedge shape, so that gives us the shaping, so it's backwards and forwards. And what we do is we just keep changing yarn and leave a bit hanging out. I have knotted up some, so you can see the little knots there. I've knotted up some. This will form our band, and I will trim those off so that they just sit there, little spikies that are sitting up, so that will look quite cool when it's done. The original wedge hat was just done in a yarn that was a single yarn that did its own thing already. It was quite successful, but I thought, well, let's have a go at doing it with our scraps, and I'm just going to show you how I do these little endy bits. The pattern is fairly simple as far as we go up. Before we get to the top, we turn round, come back, so we go 2 before the end, turn around, 3 before the end, turn around, 4 before the end, turn around, until for this adult's hat, I think, a 14 before the end, and then we finish the row, and then we repeat that. So that gives us that less knitting up the top here, more knitting down the bottom. So obviously our bottom ends up bigger than our top, and we can end up shaping like a beanie. So it's a fairly simple construction. This one I cast on, this is the adults one, about 50 stitches for the adults one, 2 8-plies held together, 7mm needles. You don't need a circular, it's just my preference to knit on a circular. But the pattern is available as a PDF on my webpage. But if you want to just wing it, 50 stitches, 2 yarns held together, knit till you've got 2 stitches up here, knit back, change colour, knit till you've got 3 left, knit back, change colour, 4 5 6 7 till you've got 14, and then knit back, then complete your row and start all over again. So but you can pick up the pattern off the web page if you like. If you think you're a bit clever, then by all means, it's fairly simple construction. The pattern has a wrap and turn, so you don't end up with a hole. I've done the German short row turn. You can use your preference. So I'm just going to show you how we start our ends, just so that you can see what we're doing there and how we tie them off. This is just a really great way of having no ends to sew in, and I'm just continually using all my bits and pieces. So just keep watching, and we'll have the rest of the instruction there. All right, so they're the colours that I'm working with. They are all 8-plies. That is cotton and silk, 100% wool, wool and alpaca, pure wool, acrylic. I think that one might be acrylic. That's wool. That's wool. Main thing is that they're all machine washable. So they may all behave a little bit differently, but because we're mixing a few together, it seems to work fine. So here are the 2 colours I have worked with. So I join them in this end. I knit up as far as I need to go. I turn around, I come back, and I get rid of them, and I pick up a different 2. So you can see all the different colours there. I've mixed 2 colours of all sorts all the way through. Generally, I'll just have a look at it. So I'm looking at that now, thinking I'll probably put the pink in there. And I'll put this more musky pink in here. And I've already got a light one there. I might put the musky pink in with that blue, I think, will be my next 2 colours. Let me get rid of all this other stuff, otherwise it's going to get confusing. All right, so the two that I've just finished with, I'm just going to cut them off here. And now I can get all of that out of the way, except for what I'm about to work with. So I don't tend to fasten any of these off until we're good to go, but you can just pull up the opposite pairs and tighten that up along there without over tightening it. So just give it a little tighten along there. But that's the two that I've just finished with. So the two that I'm about to start with, excuse me, that's my two that I'm going to start with. So what I generally do is I'll hang on to this one firmly with this hand. Just anchor this so that this doesn't come loose. Because if you just stick the needle in there, then this stitch will go quite baggy and loose. So I'm just going to stick my needle in there like I'm about to knit. I grab this pair here and I'll leave the tails at the back and I'll put that over my needle and I'll knit that through. And then I'm still hanging on to that loose tail from before. And I'm just going to knit a couple of stitches, maybe 4 stitches with that, holding on to that tail from the previous row. That'll do it. So everything's nicely anchored there. Don't worry if this seems a bit loose, we'll pull that up afterwards. And then you can just knit across the row as far as you need to knit, as far as the pattern says. So I'm just going to knit up and back, and then when I've knitted up and back, I'll come back to you when I get to the opposite end so we can see how we've finished that off. Okay, so I'm just about at the end, and you can see here that that's obviously I've turned around, I've gone up to the top, I've come back. So we'll just finish off this row, those last few stitches. And there is nothing particularly rocket science about what we're about to do. So the only thing that happens is this last stitch can be a bit loose. So all we're going to do is grab a hold of those couple of tails that are not anchored, give them a little tighten down, just hold on to them so they don't sort of get too loose. Then we can just grab the tail, both tails, and give them a tighten down. And you can give these couple before it a tighten down. So we are back to exactly where we were a minute ago, where I added those in. So we'll cut those off and then I can join in the next colour. So you can see that colour that I just did went up to there, it turned there and came back. The next one will turn less. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm just about at the end of this wedge. I've only got a couple more rows to the end of this wedge, so I think I've got 3 more rows before the end of this wedge, and we just continue to make wedges till our hat fits around, and then we'll stitch up the side. So as far as the fringing goes, I have put 4 yarns together. So there's my little knot. So I'm going to pick up these 4. So just give them a little tighten without going bananas. I'll just get all of these little fellas out the way. A handy tool to have is, there we go, a darning needle. We're not going to darn anything, don't worry. So what we're going to do is, they're the 4 that we're going to tie up. Oh, hang on. That one's included in it. Get rid of you. All right, so they're the 4 that I'm going to tie up there. So all I do is I will make sure nothing's in the way, tie an overhand knot like that. And then if I put my, hang on, my pink one's a bit short. It's not going to matter about the pink one being short because we're going to trim them off anyway, but it's easier to have a bit more yarn. So I'll just need to start that knot a little bit lower so that I get that pink one in there. All right, so now the pink one's in there. So that if I want to get that knot to pull down hard onto here, if I put my darning needle into the center of that knot and hold my darning needle hard down here and pull this one up, it will tighten onto that needle and it'll tighten nice and tight down onto there. So that is all I need to do to tighten them up. So that looks like my next 4. So if I tie my knot again, same thing, just use the eye, don't need to use the pointy bit, poke it in the center of those, pull that down nice and firmly to the edge of there. So that's left us quite a nice little edge. This is a similar technique to the scrappy blanket pattern. We use the same, we use 2 8-plies, we use the same needles, we use the same technique for our fringing there, and it just means that we can use up a whole lot of yarn and not have to worry about sewing in any ends, which is very, very pleasant, not having to sew in ends. So I'm not sure why I ended up with odd ones, but I think I did an up and back with the same color twice before. It doesn't really matter. So you can put two strands the same, make it more stripy. With me putting 2 strands differently here, it means that it's a bit more tweedy looking. You can blend as many colors in as you like. It doesn't really matter. It's completely up to you. I originally had picked out a couple of more bright colors to go in here, but they just didn't work. I started. There's a bit of black, so I only just started introducing the black. So we'll just continue with a bit of black here and there. So yeah, I'll just keep adding bits and pieces to it, and we'll keep going with that. So that's quite a great way of using up scraps, because everybody needs a beanie, especially if you're knitting for charity and you've got bits and pieces. This is an absolutely brilliant way of using up your bits and pieces. So that is the wedge hat. If you want to do your own thing, cast on your 50 and just go shorter, shorter, shorter. I think it's 6 wedges will do an adult's hat. You can do a 7th if you've got a big head. If you want a taller beanie, add a few more stitches on. It's quite easy. If you don't want the roll-up band, then you're going to end up with fringes in your eye, so that's not going to work. But that is a nice way of using up our scraps and digging into our stash.